Back in the 1970s, towards the tail end of mob involvement in Las Vegas, the Chicago mob launched one of the most audacious gambling thefts ever seen in gambling history. Today we're going to look at the complex system they devised to siphon millions of dollars right under the noses of law enforcement and gambling regulators. This is the story of a secret skim at the Stardust Casino. Hey, Robin here with Bet on Robin. For those of you who don't know me, I used to write reports like these, breaking down the economics of gambling. Well, I've quit that job and created a YouTube channel to discuss some of the hidden mechanisms underpinning the gambling business. Although before I explore the current gambling market, I want to highlight one of the absolute craziest stories to ever happen in the history of American gambling. Actually, this episode inspires Scorsese's classic gangster film, Casino. Although in the film, the skimming operation was changed so that audiences wouldn't have to think too hard. Unfortunately, walking in with a suitcase and filling it with $100 bills is way too brazen, even in a mob-run casino. So how did the skim really work? First, we have to understand how the mob came to control the largest casino in Vegas. The story begins with Allen Glick, a San Diego real estate investor who took his initials ARG and combined them with the word enterprises to form the Argent Corporation. He started by buying the Hacienda Casino. Now, the Hacienda Casino was a small to mid-sized casino at the time. A modest attraction, but not one of the elite offerings, like the Sands, Caesar's Palace, or the Dunes. Here's the thing, Glick wasn't satisfied with being a middling casino owner. He wanted to own the very best, and he was prepared to deal with anybody who could make that dream a reality. Eventually, he comes into contact with the Chicago mob, and a deal is put together. At this point, the Chicago mob had muscled their way into leadership positions within the Teamsters union. With that control, they were in a position to make a large loan on behalf of the Teamsters Pension Fund to the Argent Corporation. Now Allen Glick had the money for some serious expansion. The Argent Corporation bought the Rothstein Corporation, which owned the Stardust Casino and the Fremont Casino. The Stardust Casino in particular was the largest casino in Vegas at the time of the purchase, with over 100,000 square feet and 1,000 rooms. However, making a deal with the Chicago mob is a bit like making a deal with the devil. Although Glick would remain the owner on paper, he definitely understood who was really in control of the casino now. The first thing that the bosses of the Chicago outfit did was to appoint organized crime associate Frank Lefty Rosenthal to oversee the casinos secretly. His reputation and criminal convictions prevented him from openly holding a gaming license, but whatever the organization chart says, Lefty was the one who really wielded the power of Stardust. On a side note, Lefty was the direct inspiration behind the character of Ace Rothstein in the movie Casino. One of the most immediate problems that Lefty faced is that money needed to be redirected back to the various crime families. But in a casino setting, every dollar and cent is carefully itemized and accounted for. In the early days of Vegas, there were plenty of stories of casino owners simply walking into the counting room and walking out with a stack of cash, as demonstrated in the movie Casino. Unfortunately for Lefty, those days were gone. The Nevada Gaming Control Board was under increasing pressure to root out casino involvement and eliminate under-the-table skimming operations. To do this, they dispatched a host of law enforcement personnel to watch the Stardust Casino's money day and night. Lefty needed a skim that could simultaneously fly under the radar of law enforcement while skimming enough cash to satisfy the mob bosses in Chicago. To design the scheme, he supposedly brought in Jay VanDermark, a clever slots manager, over to the Stardust. One of the smartest features about the scheme he devised is that it's focused on the hard count room, where quarters and change are counted, instead of the soft count room, where paper bills are handled. The scrutiny in this area was a little bit more lax, as traditional casino skims are centered around the soft count room. At this time in Vegas, the slot machine was just starting to become a serious earner, and it just might be viable to skim quarters instead of paper bills. Also, all three casinos owned by the Argent Corporation all weighed their change at the Stardust, which further bolstered the amount of money that's passing through that room. To start with, VanDermark needed to defeat any forensic accounting or financial audits that would prove that money is mysteriously disappearing between the casino floor and the bank. To accomplish this, he wanted to mechanically alter the change counting device in the hard count room so that the actual casino revenue was underreported. The sheer volume of quarters going in and out of the hard count room meant that casinos had to rely on super sensitive scales which could accurately weigh out tens of thousands of quarters and display a dollar amount. You run in a scale mechanic to rig the device so that it always showed less money than was actually being weighed. For example, if $1,000 was on the scale, only $900 would actually show up on the display. This was important because personnel from the Nevada Gaming Control Board would be pacing around recording every amount that device weighed. Now there's more quarters in the hard count room than what's being officially recorded. But VanDermark has to find a way to remove those excess quarters from the hard count room without arousing suspicion. Additionally, there is the problem of laundering millions of dollars of quarters into untraceable cash. Well, VanDermark came up with an elegant solution to both of these problems. Bettors don't arrive to the casino with hundreds of dollars in quarters. They have to exchange paper money for quarters to play the slot machines. Typically, they'll summon a change attendant who will receive paper bills from the bettors playing the slot machines, and return with quarters they've fetched from the cashier's cage. The only issue is that the cashier's cage is also under close scrutiny by gaming regulators and law enforcement. So here's the solution. Instead of the quarters being placed in the cashier's cage, they're placed in locked coin cabinets located near the slot machine area. Now the extra quarters from the hard count room can be brought to these cabinets. The extra quarters can be recirculated and replaced with cold hard cash. Even better, this transaction occurs out on the casino floor, in areas where the cash can be easily withdrawn. So how much did the casino skim enrich the mob? Estimates vary, but the most widely corroborated figure I could find is roughly $10 million for each year of the skim, which amounts to roughly $50 million over the entire lifetime of the operation. Allegedly, this money was sent to the Chicago mob, which in turn gave a cut to the Kansas City, Cleveland, and Milwaukee mobs. Like many mob endeavors, it made a fabulous profit until it collapsed spectacularly. After an associate connected to the skimming operation was murdered, law enforcement finally put the clues together and raided the Stardust Casino. This meant an end for the Chicago outfit's casino business, as well as its architect. The United States was shocked as details of the scheme started to emerge, but perhaps the Chicago bosses were even more shocked when law enforcement began releasing figures related to the overall damages. In a surprising twist of fate, VanDermark was skimming the skim and taking a good part of the proceeds for his own personal use. After some time on the run, VanDermark was seen in Phoenix briefly, before disappearing altogether. Thanks for watching. If you could subscribe to this channel, it would really help me out. And if you'd like to hear more stories about gambling's sordid history, let me know in the comments section down below. I'll see you next time.